What's up, everybody? How's it going today? So, episode number 10, and got the Santa hat. It's Christmas week. The next two videos after this will probably include the Santa hat. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Today, I just want to do a quick, 10-minute video, kind of a talking head style video about why I chose to go with the 4L80E transmission. I think in my original video, I misspoken and said 4L60. Definitely not a 4L60. 4L80E. And I just kind of want to chat about it and talk about it. So, this transmission right here is a 4L80. This particular model is an older unit, a 1995. Should have came out of either a mid-90s big block, like 2500, 3500 truck, or I think it could have even been a diesel. I don't know if there was anything different. I don't think there was, but I believe it was probably a big block transmission originally. It had been rebuilt and used in something else, I would assume, at some point. Because it has the good wrench sticker on it. So that's usually a remanufactured deal. But I will be taking this whole unit apart and going through it. So the 4L80, why did I go the 4L80, not a Power Glide, not a Turbo 350, a Turbo 400, why I didn't go to like a BMW DCT, why I didn't put a manual trans in it. There's so many options that I could have went with. And one of the most common things I get is the 4L80, it's going to take so much power to turn that transmission. It's going to do this and that. It's really not that big of a deal. I don't think a lot of people understand how all the components work inside of an automatic transmission necessarily. So I worked for TCI transmission for about a year in the early 20-teens. I think it would, well, I guess it would have been earlier than that. It would have been 2009 to 2010, late 2010. And during that time, we developed a 6-speed transmission out of the 4L80 where we remachined the valve body and we would make it engage the overdrive clutch during first and second gear. So I got really familiar with doing a lot of TCM or TCU calibrations, transmission tuning, a lot of the electronics, and I sat in a lot of different vehicles with a 4L80 in it. And I'm a huge fan. I love them. Absolutely love them. They're very versatile. They're extremely strong. There are a ton of LS truck guys, LS car guys that all put these in their vehicles from 600 horsepower to 1200 horsepower and drive them every day on the street and have virtually no issues. However, not many guys run a K-Series in front of it. And the problems will lie when the K-Series needs to rev higher to make power and then doesn't make a lot of low RPM torque. So like a factory 95 454, I think they were only rated for like 440 horse or something like that. Like, I don't even know if it might have been that high. It might have been like high 300s, low 400s torque somewhere, or horsepower somewhere in there. But they made at least that in torque. Where a Honda, even with a turbo, it takes quite a bit of RPM to really start making that horsepower and torque. So automatic transmission's got a torque converter. That torque converter's got to slip enough to allow the engine RPM to go up to really start making some power. So chances are I'll probably run about a 4,200 to 4,600 RPM stall converter, okay? Which is probably plenty, honestly, and I'll probably spray some nitrous to help with the low end, getting up on the trans brake, getting the car to leave under power. I'll probably end up having to run 100 to 200 shot of nitrous, which isn't a big deal. So This car is going to be a drag and drive car. So really it's not just about going down the drag strip as fast as possible. If it was about going down the drag strip as fast as possible, I would have put a Power Glide or a Turbo 400 in there. A Power Glide's a 2-speed GM trans. They usually got 176 or 182 first gears, and then second gear is 1-to-1. A Turbo 400 is, I think, a 248 or 252 first gear, somewhere in there. Second gear is like 170-ish, 160-ish. Might even be 182. Honestly, I don't remember off the top of my head. I know it's at like general range. And then third gear's 1-to-1. The 4L80 is the same first, second, third as a Turbo 400, but it has overdrive, which I believe is like a 750, 0.75 overdrive. Okay, and then it also has a lockup clutch in the converter. So, high stall, great for launching, great for getting into my power range. The K24 that I'm going to be using, I only plan on revving it about 8,500 RPM. I'm not going to rev it any higher, because any higher, the drum that's in this unit, I should say the drum that I'll be putting in this unit, could have more chances of it breaking. The high drum in this thing, the stock one, anything above, gosh, I don't know, about 8,000 RPMs, it could come apart. And when that does, the whole top of the transmission shatters. Stuff usually comes through the floorboard, which is another reason you can't go from third gear to neutral. Like, you never want to just go, like if you're going down the drag strip, you never want to pull these things into neutral, or you never want to shut the engine off, because it will overspeed that same drum and cause it to explode. So I won't be doing that anytime soon. I'll be putting an aluminum drum in there, which is good for plenty of RPM. Honestly, I could probably rev it higher than 8,500 with the aluminum drum, but I'm just not going to. I really want this thing to live. I really want it to be reliable. And I think that I can accomplish my goals getting down the track with the ETs that I want at the end of the day at 8,500 RPM. So I'll put a rear gear in this car that's set up for the 8,500 RPM at roughly 160 mile an hour. That's about my current peak mile per hour in the car. You know, I'll probably start out trying to do like high 140, 150 mile an hour passes, but I'll probably gear it for 160 at the end of the day. So with the lockup converter though, I'll be able to go down the road in overdrive and lock the converter up. So that will allow me to cruise at a nice low RPM, not build up a bunch of transmission temperature, and keep everything happy. With a Turbo 400 or a Power Glide, I don't get the opportunity to lock up that converter. And so it's just going to be slipping the fluid. It's the fluid coupling in the converter is just going to be building heat, because I'll never be fully coupled. I'll never be cruising at that, 4,600 RPM stall or whatever it is. And if I am cruising that high, engine temperatures are going to be an issue. Trans temperatures will still be an issue. So for me, it's important for the reliability factor of being a street car. Yes, this will be a street car. Okay. It's important to keep it happy going down the road. I will drive this thing to work. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to do drag and drive events with it, with a trailer behind it, okay? I want it reliable. I want it simple. This unit right here, with a manual valve body, a trans brake manual valve body, will have the 4 gears with the overdrive, or 3 gears and overdrive, the lockup converter still. It'll be manually shifted, no electronics. It'll have a trans brake so I can launch at the track. It will be simple. I want things as easy as possible. If I need to pull it apart and rebuild it, cool. Not a big deal. There's going to be no electronic failures on my end, because I'm not going to have any electronics in there. There'll just be the electronics for the lockup converter solenoid, and that's it. Simplicity where I can find it is what I'm going to do. I don't have a huge budget. If I had a huge budget, I would probably do things differently. If I had a huge budget, I truly would have went with a Turbo 400 sent it out somewhere, had a dump valve put in it and a lockup converter put in it, okay? The dump valves allow you to bleed converter pressure so that you can stall basically, I'm not gonna say anywhere you want, but it can really help you gain a ton of stall RPM and change where the vehicle stalls. And then the lockup converter in a Turbo 400, same deal, you can lock that converter up. The big difference is when you make a Power Glide or a Turbo 400 a lockup converter, it locks up under pressure. A stock 4L80 locks up when pressure gets reduced in the converter. So if I put a dump valve in a 4L80, it would lock the clutch up when you go to dump the pressure. So you can't use a dump valve in a 4L80 unless you run a non-lockup converter, thus defeating the purpose of me wanting to cruise down the road with no heat buildup. So there are limitations. I hope that clears up any information and some of the reasons why I wanted to go to a 4L80 and why I'm going to be running this. I want simplicity. I want a trans brake. I want the lockup converter, and I want a little overdrive, okay? I'm going to have a big rear gear in this, probably 456, I would imagine, 410 at the minimum, cruising down the road. I want to be able to lock the converter up with the trailer on the back and do 80, 90 mile an hour down the freeway and have zero issues, okay? So that's the ticket. I think this is going to work. I think this is really good. The BMW DCT was a close second for me. There's a ton of people running those, and from what it seems like, they really have all the same ability to have a good trans brake setup, to hold the power, to be able to cruise down the road reliably. The only reason I didn't go DCT is I can go to any junkyard in America and they're going to have a 4L80 sitting in there. All right. What junkyard doesn't have a Chevy truck with a 4L80 or a Chevy van with a 4L80? Okay. I can find these through the US so easily. They're everywhere, and the parts are everywhere. The parts are interchangeable. All the parts in this are basically the same as the Turbo 400 parts. 32 spline output shaft, most of the clutch packs and the drum, there's just so many interchangeable parts that it makes it easy to repair. It's not just about building something reliable or building something fast, but you also have to think about how easy something is to repair, okay? K-Series engines, super easy. Everybody has one. 4L80s, super easy. Everybody has one. So that's the main reason I didn't go the BMW DCT route. It is a great setup. If I ever build a fun street car that I don't need super reliable for drag and drive like that, I think I will use a DCT one day. I think it's a phenomenal transmission, and I would imagine that I could probably still put one in this car just to try it out one day if I wanted to, because of the tunnel. That transmission isn't any bigger than the 4L80, so I hope that clears everything up. I know there was a lot of questions. I keep getting comments on different Facebook posts or Instagram posts about it. So I just kind of wanted to make a video, and I hope you guys learned something. If you have any other questions, though, feel free to comment below, like and subscribe. You guys have a good night and Merry Christmas.